So this video is for people who need help learning their multiplication table, or for parents of students who need help learning their multiplication table. And let me just start off by saying that in my years of experience, what I've come to learn is that this is very common. And I think it's something that can break your morale. It makes you self-conscious, makes you think that you're bad at math, your brain doesn't work, and it causes students to become defensive and avoidant, and it causes a lot of bad habits when it comes to math that can spread into other areas. And I do think it is curable, but there's not a lot of teachers out there that really pay the attention necessary needed to understand what's going on and then come up with a plan on how to fix it. And I'll say that, I do know how to teach all levels and abilities, all the way up to and including calculus, but the thing I think I'm the most effective at, the thing I'm the most proud of whenever I help a student accomplish this, is going from not understanding how to calculate things in your head to being able to fluently do that. And I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm not going to say it doesn't take work, but I guarantee you it's possible. And I think it's possible for a much wider range of students than most people think it's possible for. And I'll just say that so far I have yet to meet someone I have not been able to help on this. So the biggest, I think, step is being willing to go back and work on things that you might be embarrassed if someone were to watch you work on them. But you need to humble yourself and take my advice and understand that I know that I'm asking for your time, I'm asking for your effort, I'm asking for your humility. And I wouldn't do all of those things if I didn't think that it wasn't worth it. So trust me, and hopefully this video will point you in the right direction and will speak to you. So whether you're a parent of a student or you're somebody who struggles yourself, and let's be honest, there's a lot of adults out there that don't know their multiplication table. If you catch them in the street and you say, hey, what's 56 divided by 8? Will they be able to say 7 really fast? A lot of high school students out there that don't know this. So if you're an elementary school student or a parent of an elementary school student, I think there's a lot of people out there that would look at you and say, man, you're lucky because you have time to learn this. And for them, they've kind of wasted a lot of time because they never learned it. And that caused them to not learn how to reduce fractions or to do long division or to find a unit rate, and it got in the way of them learning a lot of other math. And it's not too late, but for them it's a lot more difficult to want to go back and work on foundations, and maybe they just say, oh, I'm going to be an English person, or I'll focus on something else. And I'd say no matter where you are, there's somebody who's going to look at you and say, well, you're lucky because you're working on it earlier than when I could, because I'm old and you're young. So the earlier you get to work, the faster it's cured, and you will be grateful that you did it. And one more thing on this is that it is a sad story to see people who are smart think that they're not. Math is something that's way easy for our brains if you compare it to language. I mean, right now I'm making random noises with my mouth, and you can understand the concepts that are in my mind. I'm putting them in your mind through making random noises. And you don't have to look up every word that I'm saying in the dictionary, and you don't need to slow it down. Your brain processes all of this in real time. So it is capable of amazing things. I think we just need to slow it down and feed it what it needs in order to get good at calculation. So this is my website, Goated Math. I built it in order to walk you through the steps necessary. And if you know the Common Core standards, I've tried to break it down by grade level in alignment to the Common Core standards. So it's by grade level, and I'm planning on adding more to this later, but at least for the purposes that I'm describing now, which is gaining multiplication and division fluency, this is complete. So if you click on first grade, what this will do is it will help you through activities. So I'm not going to go through every single one, but I'll kind of describe them. Counting up and down, adding by 1 and subtracting by 1, adding by 2 and subtracting by 2, by 3, getting your your addition and subtraction up to 10. And the reason why that's helpful, here I'll do this one, is because you have 10 fingers. So all of these sums should be pretty easy because you can hold up 7 fingers and then add 1 to it. Now where you have the blocks right here where you can take one and move it. So addition in this case is really, well here, let me just, combination of the blocks, and there's not too many of them that you can't keep up with it. And since we have 2 hands of 5 and 5, what we're really supposed to do is take this bigger amount and break it down into smaller pieces. So for 3 plus 3, if you're using your fingers, you're supposed to say, okay, I have 2 open fingers on this hand, so I'm going to put down 2 over here and put up 2 over here and turn this into 5 plus 1. And that's really the way that you become quick with addition, is you learn how to break it down quickly into smaller pieces. I think that's the same thing with language too. We have words which are smaller pieces of meaning, and we can string them together into sentences to create bigger pieces of meaning. Math works the same way. If you're struggling with a sentence, maybe that means you need to practice the words. And I've tried to break it down into the simplest steps that I can. Subtraction is, something similar. You can, let me skip this question real quick. Something like 7 minus 2, you're holding up 7 fingers and take down 2 of them. It's easy to see that it's 5. For something like 8 minus 5, maybe you would do this. You would say, okay, well, I have 8 fingers. And then if I have 5 fingers, how do I turn 5 fingers into 8 fingers? I would add 3 to it. Or you could do it the other way. You could say I start at 8 and I take away 5 and I have 3. So let me do one more of these. Find a good example here. Come on, 6 up to, well, no, still not a good example. Come on. You'll see what I mean when I get it. Alright, if it's something like 8 minus 7, then you could hold up 8 fingers and then turn it into 7, and then you can see the difference between those is 1. So that's really the intention of this level here, is to just show you how to combine groups or to take them away, but they're meant to be kind of easy addition and subtractions. It's a good place to build your confidence. With Goated Math, there is a timer, and you have to get 10 in a row right, so maybe this is a good way of getting used to the website and how it works. Working through first grade should be a nice little warm-up for you, because when you move on to second grade, I think this is where people need to be a little humble and be willing to practice if a weakness is identified. So this is a great activity to start with, is how do you turn 1 into 10? So you have 1 finger up. How many fingers do you have down? You would have to add 9 more fingers up, because if you put that 1 finger down and the other one's up, you can see that 9 and 1 gets you 10. And that's by using your hands, the hands that you always have on you. So 3 and 7 make 10. So what this starts to teach you is that you need to use tens in order to add bigger numbers. So let's see, something like this one, 9 plus 8, you maybe start with 9 fingers up, and you think to yourself, okay, I need to add 1 more to get to 10. but I was supposed to add 8. So that means I need to add 7 more after I get to that. And you look at the visual aid here where you take 1, you break it over here, and you turn it into 10 plus 7, 17. Another way of doing this is you can think to yourself, okay, well, 8 plus 10 is 18, so 8 plus 9 would be 1 less, 17. And these are all kinds of ways of learning how to quickly add and then subtract. I'll show you that one. For this, you're supposed to turn the 6 into 11. I think that's the easiest way of doing this. So you look at the red blocks and, how do you turn the red blocks into the blue blocks, or how many more blue boxes are there than red boxes? So if you're starting at 6 and you're trying to turn it into 11, you need to add 4 to get to 10, and then 1 more, so that's why it's 5. And by practicing these activities in this way, you can learn addition and subtraction fluency. And you might be wondering why I'm starting on this whenever I said the point of this video is multiplication and division fluency. I guarantee you, every person that has problems learning their multiplication facts, the reason why is because they didn't learn how to fluently add and subtract. And the reason why they didn't learn to add and subtract is because they maybe relied too much on counting one at a time with their fingers. So that's honestly the biggest reason I've put a timer on a lot of these, is to prevent people from doing something like, okay, 11 minus 7, here we go. And hold up 7 fingers and then do this. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Which I see a lot of people who struggle with their multiplication facts, that's how they add and subtract. They quickly count down. 12 minus 7, I mean the same way. They would have to count down. And sometimes they will make a mistake like this. So obviously 12 minus 7 is 5. But if you make the mistake that I'm about to make, you'll see what happens. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So they say the answer is 6. And the reason why is because when they start counting down, they start counting on 12 rather than counting on 11. And, you think about it, 12 minus 1 isn't 12, it is 11. So if you start counting down, you're supposed to count on the next number. A lot of students who count, they sometimes mess that up, and so they're off by 1. The bigger the number is, the easier it is to mess up whenever you count, especially if there's a lot of distractions in the room or your attention span is not that big because you're distracted by screens and all of this. And the more into the future we get, the more true that is, that it's harder to count and not make silly mistakes. So it's a really inefficient method, and it makes sense that people struggle to apply it whenever the numbers get bigger. And I think this is a much more common explanation for why people struggle to learn their addition and subtraction facts, and therefore their multiplication and division facts, rather than that they have some kind of math learning disability, which I've seen misattributed to way too many students. And again, one of the most proud moments of my career is whenever I'm able to sit into those meetings where students are evaluated for learning disabilities, and to say, hey, what was true last year, it's not true this year. They don't need a calculator for the simple calculations. They don't need extra time on their test now. They're able to work at the same level as everyone else. So, after you do that enough times, you start to feel maybe some of these learning disabilities are temporary and can be cured through maybe rehab or focused exercises. So, again, when you learn to add and subtract, what I'm about to show you next becomes extremely easy. Multiplication and division is really just fluency with counting by a number. So I think a lot of students, they know how to count by 2s and 5s. So here we go, 5, So like I say, this is a good activity to practice learning. You just type it in and press enter. So count by 5. I think a lot of students can do that. Another interesting thing that I have them do is learn how to count backwards, because if you know how to do 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and if I ask you, okay, what's 5 times 8? Do you really want to have to start at 5? Or maybe it would be easier to count backwards and say, okay, 50, 45, 40. So if you practice doing forward and backwards, it helps you quickly calculate some of the bigger multiples and divisions, which I think is a useful skill, especially when we get to some of these bigger numbers. So let me show you why some of these addition and subtraction skills are so useful whenever we get to counting by some of these bigger multiples. So, and again, let me just start by saying that multiplication is not the problem. If you think multiplication is a problem, ask your student facts that relate to 5. So what's 5 times 4? What's 5 times 5? What's 5 times 7? And if they can count the 5s out on their fingers and land on the right number, that means they know what multiplication is, they know how to calculate it, they probably know what division is. It's not the concept of multiplication that's difficult, it's calculating with the numbers that's difficult. And I think all of us will reach a point when we say, okay, what's 5,321 times 14? None of us can count by that number that fast to where we're able to give an answer. So we all have a limit when it comes to mental multiplication. The question is, what can we do to stretch that limit, and can we stretch that limit far enough to include all of the multiplication facts? And what I'll say is, with a little bit of practice, every student I've ever interacted with has been able to learn how to do this. So yes seems to be the answer to me. We can expand our mental multiplication strength enough to include the one-digit facts, which are really the essential part necessary to get through the rest of math. So here's how you do 9s. You do 9, and then you add 10, and then you take away 1, 18. Now another way you can think about doing this is by adding 1, and then you have 8 more. But I think for a lot of students, adding 10 and then taking away 1 is usually an easier way. So 18 plus 10 is 28, minus 1 is 27. 27 plus 10 is 37, minus 1 is 36. 36 plus 10 is 46, minus 1 is 45. And so you see they can quickly learn how to do that. I think everybody can learn how to do plus 10 minus 1. And I've put this visual aid here so that way they can notice the pattern on the table and just kind of see, okay, well, when it goes up by 10, it goes over by 1. They can visualize that pattern here. And then, yeah, like I say, they can practice doing that backwards too. Let's see, count down by 9. So 90 minus 9. 81, because if you take away 9, you're in the 80s, and then 10 minus 9 is 1. And then maybe here's where they have to start to remember that pattern that they just did forward. So 72, 63. So learning forwards and backwards is a lot easier. So that way when they're learning to multiply by 9, they can go 9, 18, plus 10 minus 1, 27, 37, 36, 45, 46, 45, 55, 54. And then for this one, maybe they would count backwards, so 90, 81. And that's how they can start to learn their facts. And, you know, I put a timer on these, and you have to get 10 in a row right. So by coming to Goated Math, it lets them practice on their own, and it gives them the instant feedback they need to know that they're doing it the right way. And if they go through all of the exercises on all of these 3 grade levels, it is going to build their mental math ability sufficiently enough to where they will learn their multiplication facts. If for any reason they're kind of struggling to do this on their own, you can schedule a session with me at bestmathteacherever.com. Here's my phone number. I offer a free 30-minute session for all of my first-time students, and then low fare rates with no contract fees or commitments, and then flexible scheduling make it very easy for you to get math help. So if you're trying to do this on your own and you hit a speed bump, schedule a session with me. I'll get you through that speed bump so you can continue working on your own. I feel like giving you what you need to do most of this work on your own is an efficient way of getting math help, especially if I can just show up on your screen rather than having you drive to a center. And then letting you tell me when you need the help is a great way of doing it, rather than forcing you to commit to a certain number of sessions per month or per week. So hopefully this video is enough to get you to learn your multiplication facts, but if it's not, getting math help is easy too. So there's the 9s. The 8s would be done a similar way, except you would just add 10 and then take away 2. So 18 take away 2, 16. 26 take away 2, 24. 24 or 34 take away 2, 32. And again, I'm conscious of the fact that there's students out there that aren't as fluent at adding and subtracting as other students are, but adding by 10 is pretty easy. Just go up by 1 in the tens place. 42. Taking away 2 is pretty easy. Just count down by 2. So 41, 42. Or sorry, 42, 41, 40. So that's not that hard to do that. And again, I think most students, they are able to subtract by 2 because they understand the difference between even and odd. When you subtract by 2, you can't land on another odd or even number. You have to land on another even number if you start with an even number. So notice that all of these 8s are evens. So if you do something like, plus 10, 66, take away 2, 66, 65, immediately your spidey senses are going to start going off and saying, wait a second, that can't be. This is the only odd number in this whole chain, and if I'm counting by 8s, which is an even number, I have to have even numbers too. So you start to build your intuition for what a group of 8 or a multiple of 8 should be an even number. And then again, you can practice counting down, so that way if somebody asks you what's 8 times 9, you can do 80, 72 rather than having to count up all of your 8s. So notice the order that I put these in. I think the 6s are the easiest ones to do, going from 6 to 9. The 9s are the next easiest ones because you do plus 10 minus 1. 8s are actually a little bit more difficult because you have to take away 2. I think a lot of people notice the trick with the 9s where, 1, 8, 2, 7, 3, 6. There's a lot of tricks with 9s where students learn those the easiest. So the most difficult multiple on the multiplication table are the 7s. And really everything I've taught so far with the addition and the subtraction, and I guess also the addition tricks, or the tricks with the 9s and the 8s and counting forward and counting backward, all those really come together to learn the 7s. Of course, if you know that 9 times 7 is 63, then you also know that 7 times 9 is 63. So hopefully knowing the multiples, the other arrangements of these multiplication facts helps you learn your 7s as well. You should recognize all of these numbers, but there's something difficult about the 7s, and it is that you have to break the number and make 10s like we were doing with the addition and subtraction facts, and it's not so easy to do that, so I'll show you what I mean. First, if you're doing 7 plus 7, again, hopefully you know that that's 14 just by knowing 7 times 2 from knowing your 2s, but if you're thinking about adding 7s, you need 3 more to get to 10, so you add those 3, and then if you're adding 7, there's still 4 more, so that's why it's 14. When you're doing 14 plus 7, you have to add 6 to get to 20, but there's still 1 more to add, 21. 21 plus 7 does not go through a 10, so that is easy, 28. But then 28 plus 7, you need 2 to finish the 10. But since you're adding 7, there's still 5 more. That's why 35. 35 plus 7, you need to add 5 to get to 40, and then 2 more. That's why it's 42. 42 does not break a 7, so does not break a 10, so 2 plus 7 is 9, 49. When you're at 49, you need to add 1 to get to 50, and then 6 more for 56. When you're at 56, you need to add 1 to get to, you need to add 4 to get to 60. But since you're adding 7, there's 3 more. And then 3 plus 7 is 10. And then when you land on 70, that makes sense. And then, of course, if you're counting backwards, 70 minus 7, 63. It might be easier to remember this one at this point from counting backwards rather than breaking it and adding 4 and then 3. Another thing for the 56 is 5, 6, 7, 8. 56 equals 7 times 8. 49 is a square, and people seem to remember those, so 7 times 7. One benefit of this meme from 2025 is that now that students should now know that 42 is 6 times 7. 35's a group of 5, so that's pretty easy too. So maybe just from repetition and practice, you can brute force these facts after you've practiced breaking them and adding them as well. But you see, it takes a lot more dedicated practice and instant feedback than I think students get. There is a timer on all of these, so that might end up being a little tricky. And then in addition to having, multiplication and division isolated by 7s, I mix 6, 7, 8, and 9 here, multiplication, division, and then of course the fact family versions of those as well, so lots of practice here. And then once you get through 3rd grade math, there are all kinds of activities in 4th grade math that require knowledge of, let me find a good one here, your multiplication facts. So you need to know 9 times 7 is 63, 4 times 7 is 28. You need to break 2 from the 6 and add it to the 28 to get to 30. And then there's 4 more. You put a 0 here, move on to 5 times 9, which is 45. Put a 4 up here. 4 times 5 is 24. So in order to do this kind of problem, you need to have your multiplication facts set. And you can imagine struggling with your multiplication facts is going to make it very difficult to get through these kind of questions. And if you struggle with 3rd grade, you're going to struggle with 4th grade and 5th grade and 6th grade. And when you're sitting in a 9th grade math class and you don't know how to do problems from 4th and 5th grade, it's natural to start to give up. So I feel really bad for students in that situation. I will tell you, it is possible to fix it. The question is, how bad do you want it? Do you believe it is possible? And I hope that this video at least showed you the way. Parents, if you have a younger student, know that there are people that look at your student as being lucky for having seen this video and having time to do something about it. And of course, if you need help or you get stuck, please contact me. I'd be more than willing to help. Again, this specific part of my job, helping students learn their multiplication facts and learn their math facts, is the most rewarding because students go from feeling like their brain doesn't work to really feeling the full power of it. And it helps them break through to higher levels, become very independent. For a lot of students, it's really all they need to take it from there. They become very independent after learning this. Struggle does make you stronger, so sometimes going through a little bit of this can humble you in the right way to where you take math seriously and you give it your best effort. So it's not always the end of the world when a student goes through this. Sometimes it can be a good thing in the long run. So, approach it the right way, learn something from this, and it'll make you a better learner and scholar in the long run. And that's really why we're all doing this, is to learn more about the world we live in. So, good luck, and if you need help, you know where to find me. bestmathteacherever.com. See you then.